The wind tore through the mountain pass like a living thing, clawing at skin and bone, howling through the pines as if the night itself were angry. Snow fell hard and sideways, stinging like thrown gravel, swallowing the narrow trail that led to the cabin. On that Christmas Eve, the world looked empty and merciless, the kind of cold that did not just chill the body but tested whether a soul still wanted to survive. And in the middle of that white fury, a small, broken figure stumbled forward, wrapped in rags so thin they seemed like an insult to winter itself. She looked like nothing, like someone already erased by the world, like someone the mountain would finish off before dawn. If you believe that kindness still matters, that second chances can change a life, take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Wild West Tale. Stories like this exist because people still believe in goodness. The woman did not know how long she had been walking. Time had dissolved into pain and breath and the burning of her feet, inside ruined shoes. Every step was a battle between falling down and forcing herself up again. She had not planned to reach the mountains. Life had pushed her there the way floods push debris into strange places. A burned childhood, a youth spent being told she was worthless, a marriage that had ended not with grief but with silence and an empty road. By the time winter came, she owned nothing but a small cloth bundle, a cracked mirror, and the stubborn refusal to lie down and disappear. In the valley towns below, people had stopped seeing her weeks ago. She had knocked on doors, asked for work, offered to scrub floors, carry wood, do anything. Some looked away. Some laughed. Some stared at her clothes and decided she was trouble before she ever opened her mouth. Hunger hollowed her face, shame bent her shoulders, and cold crept into her bones like something permanent. On Christmas Eve, when windows glowed warm and families gathered around tables, she was pushed out into the storm with nowhere left to go. The mountain man had not expected anyone that night. He lived high above the towns, where the air was thinner and the silence louder. His cabin was rough-hewn, built by his own hands after years of working other men's land and never belonging anywhere. He had come to the mountains after loss carved him empty. A woman he loved, a child he never got to hold long enough, graves back east he could not bear to visit. Up here, grief had space to breathe. The mountains did not judge him. They only demanded respect. That evening, he had finished feeding his animals early. Sensing the storm before it arrived, he stacked extra wood by the door, checked the latch twice, and sat near the fire with a tin cup of coffee gone cold. Christmas had never meant much to him after everything he lost. It was just another night, another reminder of absence. The wind howled louder as darkness settled, rattling the cabin walls like it wanted in. Then he heard it. Not a knock, not at first. More like something brushing the door, sliding down the logs, a sound so faint it could have been snow or a falling branch. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something in his chest tightened, the same way it had when he used to wake in the night thinking he heard his child cry. When he opened the door, the storm rushed in, carrying snow and cold, and the sight of her collapsed against the threshold. She was barely more than a shape. Her hair frozen into tangled ropes, her hands red and swollen, her coat a patchwork of tears and old fabric. She did not look up. She did not beg. She had used the last of her strength just to reach shelter, any shelter. To most eyes, she would have been a burden, another mouth to feed, another problem, another sad story that could be shut out by closing a door. But the mountain man had learned something the hard way. The world already had enough closed doors. He did not see rags. He saw survival. He saw someone who had walked farther than anyone should have to walk just to stay alive. He carried her inside without a word. The way you carry something fragile you cannot afford to drop. He laid her near the fire, wrapped her in blankets, and set water to boil. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, as if she were afraid even of air. Frost clung to her lashes. Her skin was pale in the firelight, stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. She looked like nothing because life had taken everything visible from her. But he had spent years stripping life down to essentials. He knew value did not always shine. The night passed slowly. He fed her warm broth in small sips once she could swallow, rubbed her hands until feeling crept back, and watched her chest rise and fall as the storm screamed outside. More than once, he wondered who she had been before the world broke her. More than once, He wondered why fate had placed her on his doorstep on Christmas Eve, of all nights. By morning, the storm had eased, leaving the mountains buried in quiet white. She woke with a gasp, fear flashing across her face until she realized. She was warm, safe, alive. She tried to sit up and failed, exhaustion pulling her back down. Tears leaked from her eyes without sound, not dramatic or loud, just relief, finally finding a way out. She stayed because she had nowhere else to go. He did not ask questions at first. He believed people revealed themselves when they were ready. Days turned into weeks. Winter deepened. She learned the rhythm of the cabin, the animals, the mountain. She chopped vegetables, swept floors, mended torn clothes with careful hands that shook less each day. Her strength returned slowly, like a cautious animal testing whether it was safe to come out. What surprised him most was not her resilience, but her attention. She noticed things. The way the horses favored one side of the pasture, the way a leak formed in the roof during heavy snow, the way his traps needed resetting before he even thought about them. She moved through the space like someone who understood work not as punishment, but as proof of being needed. The mountain tested her. Thin air burned her lungs. Cold bit at her fingers. Loneliness whispered old lies when night fell. She woke from nightmares more than once, shaking, convinced she was back on the road, invisible again. Each time, the solid presence of the cabin pulled her back. Wood walls, firelight, the quiet breathing of animals outside. A place in the world, however small. People from the valley came occasionally to trade. They looked at her with the same quick judgment she knew too well. She felt herself shrinking under it, old shame curling like smoke in her chest. But the mountain man never explained her, never apologized for her presence. He treated her as if she belonged, and slowly, impossibly, she began to believe it. Spring came late and hard. Snowmelt turned paths to mud. Work multiplied. Together they repaired fences, planted a small garden, cleared fallen trees. She learned the land the way some people learn music, feeling its moods, its dangers, its gifts. The mountain man watched her change. Color returning to her face, shoulders straightening, eyes lifting to meet the world instead of sliding away from it. What he saw and what others never had was not just survival. It was capability. Intelligence sharpened by hardship. Kindness that had not been beaten out of her, despite everything. Where others had seen nothing worth saving, he saw a fortune no storm could bury. A human being who, given a chance, could grow something beautiful in even the harshest soil. The challenges did not disappear. Supplies ran low. A sickness took 2 animals. A rock slide nearly cut off the trail to town. Old fears crept back into her mind whenever something went wrong, whispering that this was temporary, that she would be cast out the moment she failed. But each challenge met them together. Each problem solved reinforced a truth she had never been allowed to learn before. She was not disposable. Summer brought green to the mountains and strangers with it. A man from the valley recognized her one day, his eyes narrowing with something like contempt. Old stories had a way of traveling faster than truth. She braced herself for rejection. For the moment, the mountain man would decide. She was more trouble than she was worth. Instead, he stood beside her, steady as the land itself. The stranger left with nothing but his assumptions. That was the day something inside her finally broke open. Not pain, but gratitude so deep it frightened her. She realized that being seen did not mean being owned, judged, or discarded. It meant being valued. And that realization was more powerful than food or shelter or warmth. When winter returned, it did not feel like an enemy. The cabin glowed again on Christmas Eve, a year after the storm that should have ended her story. She stood by the window, looking out at falling snow, remembering the woman who had crawled to that door with nothing left. She almost did not recognize her. If this story is touching something deep inside you, if it reminds you that kindness can rewrite a life, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Wild West Tale. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The mountain man watched her from across the room, seeing not rags, not ruin, but strength earned the hardest way. He had opened a door on a stormy night without knowing why. Perhaps the mountain had known. Perhaps Christmas Eve had chosen both of them. Before this story ends, I ask you to do one special thing. Go to the comments and write a single word. Hope. Let it stand for every time someone saw nothing in you, and you kept going anyway. That night, as the fire cracked and the snow fell soft and steady, the mountains held two people who had been broken and rebuilt by the simple, radical act of seeing worth where the world saw none. And in that quiet cabin, the greatest fortune of all had finally found a home.